Hello and welcome to Cake with Eliza. Today I'll be taking through my 5-part series on how to make a drip cake. This is the first section of part 5 and I'll be showing you how to cover a cake with buttercream. Hope you enjoy watching. If you do, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and also watch out for the second section. Okay, so now that we've crumb coated the cake, the next step would be to put the final coat of buttercream on. So I start with my spatula. I'm using the big one this time. You can use a small one, all depends on how you feel when you're doing it. And what I tend to do is, there's so many methods. Some people use piping bag and roll a line of buttercream round to do that. That is an effective method. But personally, I like to do it this way. I like to add even layers of buttercream as so onto the side, and to create kind of like a wall and make a back and forth motion like this, and build up on that. So that creates a kind of a layer that's a consistent layer, if I put it that way. So as you can see, back and forth. So I'm just going to do that all the way around the cake, and then we're going to put some on top, buttercream on top. Takes a bit of time, but it's worth it in the end. So as you can see, and as you can see, my hand movement, it's like a back and forth, because we don't want to rub it off and scrape it off. I think that was the first mistake I was making when I first started decorating cakes. I just didn't understand what I needed to do to ensure that the level consistency was the same. I was always scraping off and reapplying the same amount. I didn't realize that it had to be the same level of thickness, like a wall. So imagine you have a wall, it has to be a wall of bricks. So let's say the width would be 2 bricks. So you ensure that you have a width of 2 bricks. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Although it's not bricks, but I hope you understand the analogy I'm trying to provide. So it has to have a certain amount of buttercream that goes all the way around the cake to enable the cake to have the right amount of buttercream, or the right layer covering it. So we're almost round. And the good thing about it is that when you go around, the scraper will let you know that there's not enough buttercream on the cake, simply because you see dents, you see parts that need to be filled, and you'll see holes. I'm just going to show you there. You can see. Good. The good thing about this is that gradually, when you've done all around it and you start scraping, you can scrape off and reapply as needed. So I've done my sides. I'm now going to put a dot of buttercream on top. I always put more if you see the need to, and back and forth movements, like a wave or like the infinity sign. You just spread it round. As you can see, it's like this. That's the movement I'm making. Perfect. I just want to scrape off excess. And then it's time to start scraping. So remember, I mentioned before that when you scrape, try to find one angle, one area, and start from there. And remember, it has to be flat on the board to ensure that it's standing upright. And then you meet your other hand where the scraper starts, and then you pull it round, drag it all along the board, making sure the surface is flat. Make sure the surface is flat, so you're scraping it around to the back. So can you see what we've done? If you look closely, you can see there's some pockets, some holes, which is okay because we're going to fill that in now. We're going to fill that in with any excess buttercream that we have. Just going to fill it in. As you can see, we have extra here. Just going to lightly fill it in, and I'm using a smaller spatula this time. Just fill it in here as well. Fill in any big holes. And little holes. Scrape up a bit. So that's a big one down there. As you can see, that one is needed. I'm just going to smoothen it. I'm going to try again and see what areas scraped off and what areas need some more buttercream. So, like I mentioned before, we start from one angle, choose an angle, make sure it's flat on the board like that, and make sure it's at an angle, 45 degrees. And as you see, my hand is here, and you just drag it gradually, slowly. Make sure the scraper meets back at where the hand started from. There we go. So that's in one drag. So as I said, I try to do the dragons in one drag, if that's the word, dragons. Okay, so I fill up. I would say it's a game of filling up and scraping off, just to ensure you get the right smoothness you want. So you fill up and you drag off as need be. Also ensure the top is flat. So I mentioned earlier on, if you're doing the top with the normal regular spatula, it doesn't allow you, if you see, can you see? You have to make sure the cake is lifted up as opposed to flat. So the offset spatula just naturally does that. So can you see? So when you're turning it around, you have to ensure you lift it up, but the offset spatula naturally does that. So that was what I was trying to explain earlier. So if you've seen that, you understand what I was referring to. So just smoothing the top out. So it's easier to use with the offset spatula. So I'm just gonna go around. I'm just taking off any excess on the sides and rubbing them in to other areas that may need it. Just gonna get more buttercream, holes or any areas that need filling up. Like I said, add a large amount of wall, it will just get scraped off if it doesn't align with the straightness of the cake, so that's okay. Remember your arm up in the, well, I suppose it all depends. Depends on how you're comfortable spreading the buttercream around the cake, and also it might depend on whether you use your left hand or your right hand. But I'm right-handed, and I believe it's easier to put your elbow in the air, and it helps you to maneuver things in an easier way. Okay, so back to what we're saying. So remember, it cannot be up high like this, straight flat down, and it's flat straight sitting on the board so that it allows us to get the straight edges and 45 degrees so that we can ensure everything's straight. So we move slowly, scraping off any excess, There we have it. So as you can see, it's beginning to take shape gradually. We just need to keep filling So bits like this need to fill up, as you can see. Bits down here we need to fill up as well. So it does take a bit of time, especially if you're new to this, it does. But what you need to just understand is recognizing these things is very important. So you might see some bubbles, you might see some discrepancies. Just fill it up. Fill it up. And when you fill it up, then you scrape again. So ensure that you have a lovely thick layer, like I said, like a border, like ensuring that it's fully covered around, especially the top edges. Ensure that it's fully covered. Okay, so like I said, we scrape again. There's a lot of scraping involved here, I must say, but then we will get there. So we start again. So this time I'm gonna go slow, slow. Slow. Okay, good. So it's taking shape. So I look around, make sure you look around and notice what areas. So you can see there's a dent here, so that needs to be filled up. There's just here. That piece needs to be filled up. As you can tell, it's very soft buttercream, so we have to go around softly and gently. There's another dent here. Make sure you scrape. So let's make sure our scraper is clean. Try to wipe it from time to time to ensure that there's no gunk on it. So we start again. So I like to start off from where I stopped. So we go again. So this time I'm gonna go slowly. Slow, can you see it? You see as you go slowly, it gets smoother. As you go slowly, it gets smoother. There we go. So if you notice here, there's a big gap there. We're just going to fill up that gap, but we're almost there because you can tell the rest of everything else is looking the parts. It's getting there slowly but surely. So you fill that part up. Fill it up. Fill it up. So let's start from here. Right, so it's forming, it's coming together now. It's coming together, so we scrape a bit more. So if you notice, it's forming an upper lip, but what we're going to do with the upper lip, once we're done, we are going to trim the upper lip off, and that would allow us to get our straight edges. There are different ways to get straight edges, but I personally like this technique because it gives it a very accurate and straight, sharp edge. Yeah. Okay, so let's look, where do we start from? There's a bit of a map going on here, but that's fine. So we're going to gently start from here. I'm just going to do slowly, slow amount of pressure. Slow amount of pressure. Slow amount of pressure, as you can see. As you're pressing on it slowly and moving around. Smoothing out to how we want it to be. Yep. So I would say maybe just fill in this part a bit and then we're done. Just this part here. So what we want to try and avoid doing is being very obsessive about it and scraping off, dragging off, scraping off, dragging, because that way you start dragging the whole cake off, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so where do we start from? Let's start from here. This is where we stopped. Notice you can see the line there. So just a few more fillings to do. Slight fillings. Clean again, and we go again. What we want to do is we want to just put some more buttercream at the top, fill it up a bit. Fill it up at the top. Right, so there's one way. Right, so this is where we can use our acrylic scraper. So it's in good condition and it hasn't been snagged, so we can use this to get pressure and air bubbles out. So we're going to go over it very slowly, just from where we started from. We stopped the last one. Remember, it's the same technique, just slowly. I personally prefer the metal scraper. I personally prefer the metal scraper. So we're going to go over it one more time so that you can see the difference and so that we can get the smoothest edges as possible. This is very slow. Slow. Snail speed. And there we have it. So all we need to do now is to focus on the top part. So we've created the lip, so the whole idea is to slice it through. So we're going to chill it and we're going to put it in the fridge for about 30 to 40 minutes, or it could be less if you put it in the freezer. Then we're going to trim off the top lip and then we will drip it and decorate it. So now that we put the cake into the fridge to chill for a bit, as you can see, we want to go further to create the straight edges. We actually have an upper lip, and that was intentional because that helps us build the side upwards. So as I was mentioning before, with regards to the upper lip, there are ways you can, some people like to use this method of scraping inwards, but personally I like to use the knife method because that way you get the straight edges that you require. So as you can see, I'm cutting through the top, and as I cut I will scrape away the excess, and this is something that we will neaten up as well. So I'm cutting through the top